I'm trying to save the world of cancer by spreading the work of Professor Thomas Seyfried. Now, the cornerstone of his press pulse metabolic therapy is the press part of the protocol, which revolves around diet. Now, given that it's all about getting your blood sugar down and your ketones up, I truly believe the best diet anyone could go on would be the carnivore diet. And having watched Kerry's channel many times with some great guests, hearing his own story really resonated with me. And I thought it would be great for you guys to hear. So, Kerry, what's your story?
Sure, absolutely. So I have been on a carnivore diet myself for about 450 days. Prior to that, I was suffering immensely. I had depression and anxiety most of my adult life. I went in, and the standard of care for that treatment was medication and pills. And at one point, I was on 15 different medications, and nothing helped my depression. It was just horrible, dark hole, suicidal depression most of my adult life. It was terrible. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. But beyond that, I had all sorts of other just crazy health issues. I was born with an irregular heartbeat. About 7 years ago, I collapsed in our house. I was confused and my face was numb. My wife called 911 and was diagnosed with a TIA mini stroke. I ended up in a stroke unit in the hospital for about 5 days. They did more tests on me there and they determined I had congestive heart failure. And besides all of that, I had stomach issues. I was diagnosed with IBS many years ago. I had multiple kidney stones. I had my gallbladder removed because of these stomach issues. They couldn't figure it out. They did some tests. They said, your gallbladder is just right on the borderline. You could probably keep it, but since you have all these stomach issues, maybe we'll take your gallbladder out. My appendix burst on the operating room table. Almost killed me if I didn't get in there. I probably would have died had it happened at home. And one of the last things I had was arthritis in my foot so bad. The last 18 months before I found the carnivore diet, they diagnosed me with gout and then arthritis, and it was in my right toe of my foot. And I was hobbling around just in agonizing pain. When I would go to the big grocery store or whatever, I'd use one of those mobility scooters. I couldn't even walk on it. It hurt so bad. So I had so many issues. I was snoring. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. I would stop breathing many, many, many times throughout the night. So I was just a horrible, horrible mess. And one day I was watching YouTube with my wife, and this video came on, and it was from this guy. His name is Dante Ferrigno. And he said he had a lot of similar issues to me, depression, stomach issues. He said, I'm going to try this lion diet, which is kind of a stricter version of a carnivore diet. But basically what he said was, I'm going to only eat meat. I'm not going to eat anything else. And I'm going to see what happens. And I'm going to do that. And it was really interesting and appealing to me because the only relief I had my entire life was when I found a ketogenic diet, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And I started doing keto, and that was the only thing where I was like, oh, my depression, anxiety is going down just a little bit. It never cured it or fixed it, but it was on my radar and it was noticeable. I could never maintain a strict ketogenic diet. I would do it, and then they would have these keto snacks and keto treats and keto bread and keto tortillas. And I would do it for a while, but I would always get a little bit of, even if I would have fruit, like raspberries or strawberries, low glycemic index, shouldn't be that bad if you just have a handful. I would have a little bit of that and my cravings would just go through the roof and I would be hungry again. And so I realized in retrospect, I'm addicted to sugar. I'm addicted to the standard American diet. I'm addicted to processed foods. And you probably shouldn't do an addiction in moderation. If I was addicted to cocaine or alcohol, I wouldn't quit those things and then be like, well, I can just have a little bit if I just have a tiny bit of those things. So I found that video from Dante Ferrigno, and my wife and I were watching it, and I was very cynical. And I said, I realized that video was 2 years old. So I said to my wife, I'm like, there's no way this dude is still eating meat 2 years later. Let's fast forward, watch his most recent video. And we did that. I couldn't even recognize the guy. He lost all of his weight. His face was just full of joy. He looked like a completely different human being. And he was absolutely thriving. And he was singing the praises of this. And that was what led me to a carnivore diet. I still thought this guy's crazy. He's an outlier. there's no way, like, how are you going to just eat meat? And then I started watching more and more videos, and I found Dr. Ken Berry, Dr. Anthony Chafee, and I started watching literally hundreds of their videos. And ultimately, the one that convinced me to give this a try was I had so many things wrong with me. I was never diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, although I believe I was probably pre-diabetic. But Dr. Berry did this video called Reversing Type 2 Diabetes. And type 2 diabetes has touched many people in my family. And I always thought that was a death sentence. Like, you get type 2 diabetes, you have it forever. There's nothing you can do but manage your insulin and things like that. I saw this video Ken Berry did, Reversing Type 2 Diabetes. It had like 2 million views and 2,000 comments. And almost every comment, Vincent, was, "You saved my life. I did what you said, and I've reversed my type 2 diabetes. My A1C was this, and now it's this." And then over and over again, "Dr. Berry, you saved my life." And I'm like, if this guy's making this up, like, all of these comments are made up too. I'm like, this is worth investigating some more. And so I decided to do a carnivore diet. I told myself, I'm going to just do this for 30 days. I really had to convince myself, right? I'm like, I didn't say I'm going to eat meat for 30 days. I said, I'm going to do an elimination diet for 30 days. I'm going to cut out all of the sugar and the seed oils and all the stuff that we all know is garbage. Ultimately, what I was telling myself was, I'm just going to eat meat, but I rephrased it, and that helped me. That helped me more. And I'm like, I can do anything for 30 days. I've done keto before. I've had success. This should work. And so I decided to do carnivore for 30 days.
Brilliant. So how did you go about just starting it in the first place? You know, what was the whole thought process?
Well, I had experience with keto, so I knew I could. I like meat. I knew I could do it. I decided, like, this is just 30 days. On day 31, I'm gonna have a cupcake. You know, I'm gonna bring back the other food. I can do whatever, but let's just give it 30 days and see. That helped me. And then in terms of the food, I went out and I went shopping, and I kind of budgeted for 30 days, but I told myself, like, this is going to be hard. I know it's going to be hard the first week or two, because you got to get over that sugar addiction again. Now,
Yeah.
I had done keto on and off for years, and I knew what that was about. When you go from eating sugar to going into ketosis and burning fat for fuel, you can get the keto flu. It can be miserable for a week or two. So my budget for the month, I allocated more in the beginning to spoil myself. I'm like, I'm going to have the ribeye and the really good steaks those first couple days. We'll do more of the ground beef and patties later on in the journey. And that really helped me. But the craziest thing for me, and everyone's different, everyone's results are different. I was suffering really badly, but people don't believe this, but this is all true. Like, the first day I did carnivore, and this was probably because I was coming from keto before, my wife, the next morning, she said to me, "You didn't snore last night." And I had sleep apnea and a CPAP machine. I was snoring forever. It was contentious with me and my wife. Like, I had to get separate bedrooms, because not only would I snore, but I would stop breathing. And she'd like, "Oh my God, is he dying?" And she'd have to, like, keep waking me up. So she was always really aware of my sleep. I stopped snoring. And since learning so much more about this, I've heard a lot of people say the same thing. In fact, Dr. Jordan Peterson, who famously is a carnivore like me, he went on Joe Rogan, and he said within the first week, he stopped snoring. And I've heard so many other people say that. And it was very eye-opening to me, because snoring was miserable. I was like dying throughout the night. Like, I'd stop breathing with the sleep apnea. I had to strap this stupid CPAP machine to my face every night. I hated it. But I knew there was downstream effects too from having poor sleep. It weakens your immune system, messes with your hormones. It just runs you down. And so when I stopped snoring, I got mad too, because my sleep doctor told me, he's like, "Kerry, you're about 80 pounds heavier than you need to be right now. Maybe if you get the weight down, you can stop snoring." But in my mind, I'm not going to stop snoring. It's because my neck is fat. I'm overweight. I got to get the weight down. Wasn't the case for me. I didn't lose a pound, and I stopped snoring. It was all inflammation. My throat, my tongue, it was all inflamed. And that was what was causing my snoring. And for maybe not everybody, but for many, many people out there that snore, it's just inflammation from the foods we're eating. And that's one of the things that happens very quickly for many people that do a carnivore diet. The inflammation goes away.
Wow, yeah, because I always wondered, they all talk about inflammation, and I no idea what it was. but I'm nodding with you because I snore and suffer with sleep apnea, and we I would really like to do the carnivore diet myself, and I probably will at some point, but I need to convince the wife to do it also because she just eating two separate meals, both at different times would be, I think, really difficult for me.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but listen, man, if you give it 30 days, I'll tell you what, it'll change your life forever. It's incredible. I did it myself and my wife wasn't on board, and it was very difficult cooking two separate meals, but I'm like, I could try for 30 days and then we'll go back to the same meals. But afterwards, my wife was a vegetarian for 5 years.
Wow.
And she's now carnivore with me. She started many months ago and she failed. She went in head first from vegetarian to carnivore and it was too much for her.
Yeah.
But 70 days ago, she decided, I never thought she would start again. She decided to start again and she eased into it and she took baby steps. She's full on carnivore right now and she's absolutely thriving. But, the thing you said with inflammation, same thing with me. Everyone that hears what I'm doing, friends and family or people online, you're crazy. You're going to have a heart attack. Aren't you worried about eating all of that meat? Every one of those people should be terrified of inflammation. This is one of the things I learned from Professor Seyfried as well. Chronic inflammation for years and years and years, that can damage your mitochondria. And if you do it long enough, it can lead to cancer. And so many of these chronic diseases that are out there in the world, it's from chronic inflammation. Our bodies were never meant to be chronically inflamed. There's millions of species on this planet. There's only one, maybe two or three, humans and the dogs and cats that we feed, that are inflamed and that end up with arthritis and cancer and all of these diseases.
Yeah. Dogs. I mean, they really did evolve to eat pizza, didn't they?
Right. Oh, my dogs are both carnivore now. We took them to the vet, and the vet said they're healthier than they've ever been. They had all their records, and they're like, their weight is better. My dog was arthritic before going carnivore, and then there's like, what did you do? And we're like, we're feeding them a carnivore, and they're like, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what would a dog in the wild?
A wolf in the wild. I mean,
yeah, it's going to catch a squirrel and cook it over a fire and then eat it. Like, what are you even talking about? This is insane. But with the veterinarians, it's similar to our healthcare with humans and doctors. They're kind of indoctrinated a certain way. There's no logical sense to it whatsoever.
No, and the whole food pyramid and all that,
it's all backwards.
Yep, absolutely. So, what about, I'm trying to think of the disease now that that sailors used to get because of a lack of vitamin C? What?
Scurvy.
Scurvy. That's right. Yeah.
Scurvy. So that's a question I get from people oftentimes. Not an issue for carnivore. So I've been doing this 450 days. I haven't had any oranges or citrus or vitamin C or any of that. Absolutely thriving. The chemistry of the body changes when you're a carnivore. You go from burning carbs and sugar to burning fat, and a lot of things change. Now, if I was still doing a regular diet where I was eating sugar, but then I eliminated the citrus, I could get scurvy. But it's very interesting and should be eye-opening to people. There's also so many of the recommended daily allowances that they have for different things, completely different for a carnivore. A lot of those things are different because when you're on the standard American diet and you're putting all of this junk in your body, the vitamins don't uptake as they would. Now on carnivore, I'm not putting all that junk in my body. I can get all of the nutrition, vitamins and minerals, everything I need out of a piece of meat, even though it's at a much smaller recommended daily allowance than on the standard American diet, because the body chemistry is different. And those vitamins are they uptake better in the carnivore body versus in the standard American diet because you have all that other stuff going in there. So
right. So the sailors in 1700 or whatever, they were just eating garbage and no vitamin C as well.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, I'm learning a lot more about this stuff. There's so many differences with carnivore. They almost need to have a separate recommended daily allowance for carnivore because a lot of the chemistry and a lot of the things are different. But my thing with carnivore was, so I did it. Like I said, I stopped snoring, but then the craziest thing was my depression and anxiety started going away. And that was around week 3 or 4 or so. And that was just absolutely insane to me. I was on medication my entire adult life and nothing came close to touching it. It took around 70 days on carnivore. I hit day 30. I felt absolutely amazing. So I kept going. Around 70 days on carnivore, my arthritis in my foot, they wanted to do surgery on it. They were going to cut my toe open, completely gone. My IBS went away in a couple of weeks. My stomach was always gurgling and bubbling and hurting me. I think that was within a month. That was completely gone. It was just absolutely insane. Every health issue I had, IBS, snoring, depression, anxiety, all went away. And at my heaviest, I was 262 pounds. I'm 162 pounds now. I lost most of that on carnivore. I did a little bit on keto before, going up and down, but I'm down over 100 pounds since my heaviest between keto and carnivore.
Right.
It's completely changed my life. And then the thing that got me fired up was the depression and anxiety part of it. There's so many people in the world right now suffering, now more than ever, not only from all of these chronic illnesses, but also depression and anxiety. And that was when I decided I wanted to do a documentary. And I just want to get the word out so that other people just have this as an option.
Yeah. I saw the video you did with Mimi, and I mean, wow, that lady really suffered, didn't she? And if anybody watching this, go watch that. Wow.
Yeah, and I've been hearing so many more stories like that. So we decided we're going to do this documentary, Healing Humanity, and the idea was, let's just show people that are doing the diet like me, a proper human diet. That's what I call it too. I believe this is what humans were intended to eat.
Yeah.
You go in the grocery store right now, there's 60,000 products on the shelves. 59,995 of those humans were never intended to eat. It's highly processed, plant-based, sugar-filled, seed oils. Like, our bodies weren't intended to eat these things. And if you just look on a chart, the more we're eating that stuff, the sicker and sicker we're getting. There's a perfect correlation between the two. And by the way, if you put cancer on that chart too, it correlates as well. And that was something we were never going to talk about cancer in this documentary until a man named Jeff DeProsperous emailed me and was basically begging, like, I want my story to be told. I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. He was told it's inoperable, incurable. You have months left to live. And he found carnivore diet, and he found Professor Seyfried's work, and he started using metabolic therapy, and his results are absolutely incredible. Like, the story he told me was just absolutely incredible. Like, this guy's got stage 4 cancer. He started doing chemo treatment on the standard American diet, and he was suffering, and he was sick, and he could barely keep up with it. And then he found Professor Seyfried, metabolic therapy, carnivore diet, fasting. He started doing those things. He's like, I feel like I'm 20 years old again. I could run a marathon right now. I'm full of energy. His depression, he was diagnosed with depression. His depression went away. And he's like, I'm so much stronger. Like, even if this isn't helping the cancer in some way, clearly having a strong immune system and being full of energy and just feeling the best he's felt in his entire life is going to help fight his cancer. And so that was when I kind of went down the road and decided we're going to not only include cancer in our documentary, but it's going to be a huge part of it, as well as Professor Seyfried.
Yeah. I did try and reach out to Jeff, actually, in the same way as I reached out to you, but he hasn't watched the video that I sent him. So because you know how you go on YouTube and you set it as unlisted, so anyone with the link can actually watch it. So nobody's going to guess a link, are they? But so I sent him the link, and it's had no views. So he obviously hasn't watched it. So I'll send him a message.
I'll send him a message. I'm sure he would love to do a video with you. He was in Italy for a while with his son and went completely offline for a while. And he goes dark for a while, which I totally respect. He's like, I got to focus on he does YouTube and it inspires people. And then he'll go dark for a couple of weeks where he's like, I'm focusing on my health and I'm fasting and my family and things like that. So
yeah, with cancer, I get that. I mean, when I went down the rabbit hole of doom, shall I call it? When I read 50 books on the subject, because I'd read one book and it recommended another book, and I'd read another book and it recommended another one, and in so and so's book this, and it, and you've got to focus on yourself. because,
Right.
especially given the standard of care and the state the standard of care is in, and if you've been told that you've got stage 4, then, standard of care, they normally send you home to die, don't they?
Right. Yep.
So yeah, I understand that. I get that.
That was the biggest advice that Jeff gave me. And I've interviewed several other individuals with cancer now. You got to be your own advocate. You have to take things into your own 2 hands. Your doctor will probably spend an hour with you. You should be spending hours. You should be researching your particular type of cancer. Jeff and me too. I'm not telling anybody what you should do for your cancer treatment. Jeff does chemo. He does a hybrid approach. My only thing after learning more about Jeff and interviewing Professor Seyfried for a documentary is people need to know that this is an option, an additional tool in the toolbox. If you get cancer, this is something that is worth exploring, but sadly, most people they'll never know about it. They're going to get diagnosed with cancer. They're going to get 2 options or a few options, but the standard of care is going to be the main option, which I hate to be cynical, but coincidentally, it also happens to be the option that makes hospitals millions and millions of dollars. And the option metabolic therapy, which makes the hospital $0, you're never going to be told about unless you look it up and research it on your own.
Yeah, I went to my oncologist and I took a paper of Dr. Seyfried's in, and he literally just went, or she literally just went and dropped it in the bin and said, all I can do is standard of care. That's it. Standard of care. That's and her hands were tied. And it's rotten, especially when Professor Seyfried's done the work, and he said that the drugs work 10 times better when you're in therapeutic ketosis 2.0 or below. So, I mean, anybody that gets diagnosed with cancer, get your GKI 2.0 or below. You can do it on Carnivore, and then moving into therapeutic fasting occasionally, like Jason Watson. Yeah, he's been posting videos daily of him taking his GKI because he's fasting at the moment. Are you fasting along with him? Because you did say that you would do for a 8 days.
Yeah, so I did a couple with my buddy Jeff. In fact, I did an 8-day one with Jeff, which was crazy. But honestly, I felt so good at the end of it. Jeff had a big cancer screening coming up, and he wanted to do an 8-day, which is his longest. Just to step back for a second, Jeff, he does 5-day fasts. He's done 43 or 44 rounds of that. And in the middle of the fast, he gets his chemo treatment. And just like you were just saying, Vincent, his chemo, Professor Seyfried's talked about this before, the chemotherapy, you need less and it's more effective.
Yes.
And it's more bearable. That's the biggest thing for Jeff. It's more bearable. He was suffering before. He did this on standard American diet. He'd get chemo and he'd get sick to his stomach and he'd be nauseated all the time. Now he's walking around with a chemo bottle. He's running around. He's jogging. He's exercising. He's full of energy. Jason is absolutely awesome too. I've become friends with Jason more recently. I was going to do a fast with him. I'm going to do the next one with him. I bowed out of this one at the last minute because I was in Austin filming for our documentary. And I was like, yeah, when I get back, I'll do it. Well, I got back and I was exhausted. we filmed 14 individuals for a documentary. And when I got back, I forgot that I had said that to Jason. And the first thing I did when I got back was I went to the grocery store and I bought all my meat for the week. I bought a big brisket, all of this food. So I'm probably going to do the next one with Jason, but what he's doing is absolutely awesome. Jeff's doing it as well. You know, I interviewed 2 people in Austin. I don't know if you're familiar with these folks, but your audience would probably absolutely love them. Brad and Maggie Jones. They're doing a documentary. Yeah. Cancer Evolution. I think it's cancerevolution.film. They're doing a documentary all about Professor Seyfried's work, cancer as a metabolic disease. It's several episodes, and the first episode they did was all about Otto Warburg. And it's like, we've known some of this stuff for like 100 years now. Professor Seyfried has greatly expanded upon it. But we've known about it for 100 years, and then we went in the wrong direction for so many years. But if you're touched with cancer or you're diagnosed with cancer, you should learn about Professor Seyfried's work, watch Vincent's videos, and you should go check out that documentary too. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I absolutely just love what they're doing because it explains it so much better how cancer is a metabolic disease and there's metabolic treatments for it. This whole genetic thing is absolutely insane. It's all people are talking about. It's derailing conversations. It's like, Professor Seyfried told me this. This is my interpretation of everything I learned. But if you look at cancer rates right now amongst those in 40 and 50 years old, they're going through the roof. The cancer, like billions and billions of dollars spent on cancer. Why haven't we made any dent in it at all? And it all correlates. You look at the consumption of the standard American diet and sugar. Cancer is just completely correlating with it. The further humanity escapes from what is natural, mainly through the foods we're eating. You can get cancer from smoking cigarettes or breathing in toxins and things like that. But I believe personally, from what I've learned, most of the cancer in the world right now is from the foods we're eating. Humans are chronically inflamed for years and years. It turns into decades and decades. That chronic inflammation leads to mitochondrial damage, leads to cancer. That's my thought on it anyways, from what I've learned so far.
Absolutely. As an American, if you look at the export of the American diet all around the world, with the McDonald's is the first American thing that you see, and then we got KFC and Burger King and you name it. The whole society is addicted to sugar.
Yep. And it gets the thing that drives me nuts with that is, for some reason, just because it's always been around, sugar gets a pass. But if you look at sugar, explain to me how that is not an addictive drug. They'll put someone, sugar lights up the brain on an MRI, just like cocaine does, just like a hard drug. And I have had so many people come on my channel and they told me I was addicted to cocaine. I was addicted to sugar. It was harder for me to get off of the sugar than it was the cocaine. And if you even research more into sugar, I have this great book I recommend. It's called Sugar Blues by Duffy. His name is Duffy. And on the back of it, it says, consumed at a rate of like 150 pounds per year per person. It causes diabetes. It causes all sorts of chronic illnesses. It's a leading factor in depression and anxiety. It is sugar. This book was written in 1974. Like, we've known about this stuff forever, but why is it? Why is sugar normalized and just gets a complete pass? Because it makes billions and billions of dollars. If we get kids hooked on sugar from a young age, we put cartoon characters on cereal boxes, they're going to be lifelong sugar consumers, or in other words, billions and billions of dollars for the food industry, big food, big pharma, big medicine, because it's all a circle, right?
Absolutely.
These kids are getting sick, They're getting diabetes, they're getting cancer, they're getting depression, they're getting autism, they're getting ADHD, they get into adulthood, then they got diabetes, then they're worth billions of dollars for the hospital. Then they end up with cancer, they're worth billions of dollars for cancer treatment in the hospitals. And every single factor is just profit. What's going to happen? We're going to push sugar and just make it normalized. Yeah, the circle of death, I call it. It just continues and continues. It goes round and round. But sugar, it drives me insane. People that hear me say that, they think it's crazy because, well, grandma gives you cookies and we celebrate sugar at everything, but it's an addictive drug that we've normalized. It rots your teeth. It messes your brain up. Like, if people realize the downstream long-term effects of sugar, it's a horrible
The thing
drug.
is that, like you say, 99.9% of everything that's in the supermarket, on the supermarket shelves, it's full of it. People don't realize, you get a hamburger from McDonald's, a Big Mac. It's got three lots of bread there.
I love.
I mean, the whole thing.
Example too,
pizzas,
right? People watching this right now, and me, they're thinking meat's going to kill you. Meat's so bad for you. There is so much bad science out there. This is the science, just so everyone is aware. You've used the McDonald's example, and I love it. They'll do these observational studies where they track people and they say, what do you eat? And people say, I eat meat. Well, what meat do most people eat? McDonald's, just like you said. Now look at McDonald's. What does someone eat at McDonald's? There's a little tiny puck of a piece of meat. Yep. It's this big, and then there's a carby bun that's got sugar in it. There's ketchup that's got sugar in it. There's mustard, there's pickles, there's processed cheese. It's all got seed oils in it, which is inflammatory, completely unnatural. You have a pound of French fries, you have a gallon of Coke, and then they eat ice cream afterwards. That's what these observational studies will ask people. Yeah, I eat a lot of meat. I go to McDonald's twice a week. That little tiny puck of a burger, that's what's causing all of these issues for people and heart disease. And everything else just gets a complete pass.
And don't forget the large fries.
Yeah, right? Well, and that's the thing. Like, if you wanted to sell an incredible amount of fast food, junk food, processed food, which they do because they make billions of dollars, you just demonize meat. And that's how they demonize meat with these observational studies. What did you eat? Oh, yeah, I eat meat twice a week or once a day or whatever. And people are eating McDonald's and junk food, and all that other stuff gets a complete pass.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, pizzas and you name it, you know, it's full of it. The breakfast cereals, Kellogg's. I mean, Oh my God. And I can remember as a kid eating Frosties. Do you have those? So it's got a sugar on the outside of the and Weetabix. Is that a thing in America? Weetabix?
Not that one, no.
No, but it's anyway. And people used to put spoons of sugar on it because it was
you gotta get more sugar
pancakes.
on it. I remember that. This stuff too, like, it's normal to us, right? Because we've had it our whole life. Cereal in a box. It's basically dog food for humans. It's highly processed, shelf-stable garbage. And the ingredients used to be this, then they were this, now they're this. You look at Cheerios right now, heart-healthy Cheerios. It's a scam. It's a criminal scam. You look at Cheerios and it's like fortified with all of these vitamins. Well, there were oats in there, but then they processed it to make it shelf stable. That got rid of any of the nutrients that was in there in the first place. Then they fortify it, which they put these vitamins in there, but the way it's fortified, it doesn't uptake in the body like it would have if it was in its natural state. Now they have these, it was just on the news a while ago, Cheerios, the pesticides they use on Cheerios causes fertility issues for people. And people are eating it. And then there's glyphosate. I interviewed Dr. Barry, and he's like, every single time you eat a bowl of cereal, you're eating glyphosate. Every single time, without a doubt. It's sprayed all over this stuff. You got pesticides, fertilizers, forever chemicals, glyphosate in this shelf-stable kibble that I wouldn't feed to my dog, but I used to feed it to my kids. I'm not judging people. But if you really take a 50,000-foot step back and look at it, it's insane. Like, why would you give that to your kid? Give them some scrambled eggs or something. There's no redeeming quality in Cheerios whatsoever. But you look at the box with the heart on it, you dig into how they put that heart on there, and it was money. It was like paid off. Like, there's absolutely no redeeming quality to eating Cheerios whatsoever. And then people have to sprinkle the sugar on top of it because it's not enough carbs anyway in it. But it's just insane.
Yeah. I've got a friend. You're talking about glyphosate and stuff. I've got a friend that lives in a small town in Ohio. We've been talking on the internet since forever, and he has a farm and he grows corn, and it's Roundup Ready corn. You cannot buy any other seeds other than Roundup Ready. Yeah. He can't buy anything, but he doesn't put the Roundup on the corn because they eat it themselves, and he actually he grows it and gives it all away. Roundup Ready corn. Yeah. You're eating Roundup with every piece.
I've gone down the rabbit hole with Roundup and glyphosate, and it's they put it on the produce, right? They put it on the corn, and they're starting to have like weeds that are becoming Roundup resistant. So then they're like, well, the corn is fine because they've genetically engineered the corn to resist the glyphosate. So they'll just blast more and more all over everything, and it's just decimating the soil. It kills everything around it. It's everywhere. I did an interview with the guy, and he's like, it's everywhere. Like glyphosate right now, you could go out, and if it rains, you could test it. There's glyphosate in the rain. You can go outside, take a big breath. There's glyphosate particles in the air. It's literally everywhere. So my whole thing, when people look at me like it's crazy for eating meat, I could go on forever about vegetables, but most of the vegetables we get nowadays, they have 1/7 the nutrients that they would have had 100 years ago, because the soil is completely deficient of nutrients. We used to have a farm, right? And you'd have a local farmer, and the cows would poop on the ground, and that was manure, and that was natural fertilizer, and that would put minerals back in it. We don't do that anymore. We just blast it with glyphosate and fertilizer and chemicals, and the soil is like dust at this point. So the plants that people say to me, oh, vegetables are so good for you. They have 1/7 the nutrient they used to. They have pesticides in them. The pesticides have forever chemicals. I used to, before doing carnivore, I'd have a salad. That was my big thing. It seemed so important. That was my social norm. The salad's so important. What would you get from a salad? Like 14 calories. But if you do the math, it takes my stomach more energy to digest than the energy I'm going to get out of the salad. And that is absent the fact that the salad now has 1/7 the nutrient it used to. And it's got pesticides in it that, oh, I washed it off. They're still inside there. And we're ingesting these pesticides. And we're just like, oh, I'm sure it's just fine. Yet for some reason, everyone's got leaky gut and all of these IBS issues like never before in the world. So
I heard that celery, the actual chewing of the celery is more, it takes more energy to chew the celery than is actually in the celery.
right.
But I did history at school, and I did the Industrial Revolution of the UK. And now I'm that old, my friend said that when I went to school, there was no history. But anyway, that's them just taking the mickey. And I wear this mustache, just that's taking the mick from a friend of mine who he can't grow one, so I've grown it just to annoy him. But anyway, I did the Industrial Revolution, and we used to crop rotate. So one year it was corn, the next year it was wheat, the next year it was barley or whatever, and that crop rotation is what kept the goodness in the soil. But now, of course, you see a field and it's got wheat in it, and the following year it's got wheat in it, and the following year it's got wheat in it. I mean, you know, and they just try and keep all the growth up with chemicals, simples.
Yeah. The wheat thing is funny. I read this book recently, this Unholy Trinity. I interviewed the gentleman that wrote this book. And one of the things he was talking about was the 60,000 products in the grocery store. How many of them contain wheat? And there's this ingredient in wheat that's highly addictive. It's like hits the receptors in the brains. But do you have Twizzlers where you're at, the candy Twizzlers? Like a licorice
I think
kind of?
so. Right.
For those watching Twizzlers, if you look on Twizzlers, the second ingredient in Twizzlers, this red candy, licorice, is wheat. It's wheat. Like wheat is in everything now. It's mind blowing. It's absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, we're gluten free in our house. My wife's got a problem with gluten, and I used to play golf, and we used to take it in turns to go to the local pie shop and buy pies. So we had a 4-ball regularly on a Saturday, and we'd take it in turns. And one particular guy, John, went to the local big box supermarket like your Walmart, and I don't know what it was, but those pies, they used to really, really upset my stomach, you know. But you're talking of books.
Yeah, there's the one.
There's the one. $120 later.
Were you able to get through it and read it okay? Because there's some. When I interviewed Professor Seafried, he's absolutely incredible. But I'm like, I made the mistake. I asked him this question. I was like, can you put that in layman's terms? And he was like, no. He's like, rightfully so. He's like, if you get cancer, you need to learn some of these terms. But yeah, that book is something.
Oxidative phosphorylation.
Yes, yeah. When I asked him to do layman's terms, he mentioned those words, and then like every other mostly scientific word, it was opposite layman term. I was like, okay, slow down. I gotta like have my brain process these words here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been chopping up his videos and posting them on my channel, and just you know, small little snippets here and there for people to take on board. And obviously I've posted things like his presentation that he's done. There was one of the best videos on the channel is a presentation that he did, but I it was 2 hours long, and I supercut all the ums and ahs and things out of it, and nice. and it took me 2 days to supercut it, but it's worth it because it's the whole presentation, and it's just over an hour, you know, for people to digest. And when he says things like oxidative phosphorylation, I've just put a caveat on, you know, oxygen, getting oxygen for energy, and things like that to try and make it easier for people. But
Right.
yeah, he's awesome, and the whole system's broken, and this thing behind me here, that's a typical disruption curve. You know, like Apple iPhone disrupted Nokia, like Blockbuster was disrupted by Netflix, like horses were disrupted by automobiles. I think that cancer is going to be another disruption. My sincere opinion, when Professor came on the channel, he didn't acknowledge it, but he didn't disagree with me either, in so much as that I think that what will happen is people will, when Professor Seyfried comes out with the paper that you can take to a doctor's and say, I want metabolic therapy, and that's how you do it. That's how you do it. When he comes out with that paper, and it's not long now, he says fingers crossed. But when he does that, I think people will take that on board. They'll go find, my recommendation to people is to go find a retired doctor, one that's on board with what Professor's saying, and that's not, whose hands are not tied anymore. And people will do metabolic therapy. They'll get well. They'll come on a channel like mine and say, thanks for showing me the way. Thanks for pointing me in this direction of the professor. And I'm now, like Den Stacey is, I'm now well. No evidence of disease. I don't know if you've seen Den Stacey on any of the. He was on with Drew Porritt. I've got a few snippets of it on my channel, and it's definitely worth checking out. But he had a sarcoma of the arteries, arterial sarcoma, and was sent home to die. And they gave him, I think it was six months without chemo and a good life, or 18 months with chemo with a shit life. And he decided to look at Seyfried's protocol. He kept emailing Seyfried, kept asking him all sorts of questions, and then he got him in touch with the Hippocrates Research Foundation. And the guys at the Hippocrates talked him through it, helped him through it. He did treat himself, but they guided him through it, and he's now no evidence of disease. So, and I think that's what will happen. I think people will get better and come on, show that they've done well, and then other people will do the same. And the first thing that the hospitals will know about it is when people stop going.
Right.
You see what
I
I'm
love
saying?
that. I share the same thing with you. That's the whole reason this documentary we're doing it, just to share the examples of people that are doing this. So Jeff DeProsperous on the cancer side, he's going to be in the documentary. Professor Seyfried and his whole team. But I think that's one of the other things too. I always want to encourage people. I get so many people that they seem to like throw their hands up in the air. My doctor's not on board. I can't do it. I don't think that's true. If I was diagnosed with cancer, I'd be so blessed if my doctor was on board. But like Jeff DeProsperous, so many of the things he's doing, like exercise. You don't need your doctor for exercise. He's decided to fast. It would be great if his doctor was on board, but he doesn't need his doctor to do fasting. Humans have been fasting since the start of time. And his diet, like how many people change their diet without going to their doctor? Ketogenic diets have been around forever if you're doing a ketogenic diet. So there are things you can do if your doctor isn't quite on board yet. Not that you just throw your hands up in the air and say, I can't do anything. But I'm on the same page with you. I really think these inspiring stories, seeing, hey, other people are doing this and having success, that's going to inspire other people to hopefully want to try it as well.
Yeah, well, it's exactly the same way with you guys and the Carnivore, isn't it? You know, because people are getting better on the Carnivore, they're stopping snoring, they're losing the weight, they're feeling a million times better, and yeah, I've got to get in there. So you're 400 and how many days now into?
Right around 450
Right.
days. Yep. Yeah, and the crazy thing is, it gets better and better. I interviewed Dr. Anthony Chafee early on, like day 30, and he's like, it gets better. I thought he was exaggerating, but it gets better and better. Like my energy, the mood, everything. The most rewarding thing, though, has been hearing all of these other stories from individuals. I've been interviewing a lot of people on my YouTube channel or for the documentary. Real quick, I interviewed a guy yesterday. Oh, my goodness. This guy had psoriasis so bad. he showed me pictures. It was just bloody. It should have been like rated R, like to look at. It was just scabby and bloody. Psoriatic arthritis, clinical suicidal depression. For 30 years, he had this psoriasis. His skin was just peeling and flaking. And he went on Carnivore. He saw Michaela Peterson's video, Jordan Peterson's daughter. He went on Carnivore, and he's coming up on a year right now. No psoriasis, no depression, no arthritis. He's like, and he's mad, and then he's like, has this urgent need to like, listen to me. Like, look what happened to me. How many people are suffering right now from psoriasis and arthritis and depression? And I'm like, I'm with you. It's like, we just got to get the message out there and more people, because there's so many people suffering right now.
Yeah, I had a friend years ago that was really bad at psoriasis, and I didn't know him at the time, but he had a really, really bad episode at one point in his life where it was all over his body. And the doctor said, the only thing you can do is go float in the Dead Sea. And he did go float in the Dead Sea, and it really, really helped him. But knowing that now, if I see anyone with psoriasis, I'll certainly tell them to check it out. Yeah,
it's amazing. All of the different various stories of people struggling for decades and decades, and it's just nutrition. In so many cases, it's just nutrition.
Wow. An auntie of mine, an auntie of the wife's had really bad arthritis. It was so bad, all her fingers were all twisted up and matted up and everything, and she was in a wheelchair at the end, and in a real sad, sorry state. And wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I hear that one over and over again. This is one thing I learned. If it ends in itis, arthritis, colitis, appendicitis, it's just inflammation. It's inflammation. Why do we have inflammation? The foods we're eating. In almost every case, it's from the foods we're eating. So all of those itises go away. All of them go away.
You mentioned your appendix bursting. I had my appendix out when I was 15 years old, and the day before, that was on New Year's Day, and the day before I had been babysitting I was 15 years old, and I'd been childminding for some friends of the family, and they went out, and the chocolates that they had from Christmas was like a Quality Street box, like Rosie's chocolates, in a tin the size of a biscuit tin, a cookie tin, and I must have eaten half of them, and the following day, appendix and from chocolates.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah.
I've been there. I'm sure that's what caused mine too. It was something I was eating, either immediately or longer term.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the chat, Kerry. It's been absolutely brilliant, and I hope the audience are going to take something from it. And I would certainly recommend Carnivore to anyone that had cancer that was trying to get their GKI down, because it's easier with meat and fat than a bunch of lettuce.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I absolutely love what you're doing. I share your passion. I want everyone to know about Professor Seyfried's work. We put together this free cancer action plan, and it's got links to Professor Seyfried on it. It's on our website, healinghumanity.movie. You click on cancer. It's completely free. There's a video I did on there, Vincent, you might find interesting too. I did with Dr. Tony Hampton, where he kind of simplified some of Professor Seyfried's work, and he did a PowerPoint presentation. I did that video with Jeff, but all of these things, including Jeff's regimen, what he does for exercise, supplements, fasting, it's all listed on there. We don't want anything for it. It's just completely free. Again, we're just trying to get the word out. If someone's diagnosed with cancer, they should have these as an option, just another tool in the toolbox. So
absolutely, yeah, and I'll put everything in the links in the description from the video.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Great to talk to you.